I spent the most incredible 3 years of my life with Jessica. The day I proposed was perfect. We had driven up to Cape Cod, and as the sun set over the water, I got down on one knee. When she said yes, I thought nothing could ever come between us. Little did I know my younger brother, Aaron, my parents' golden child since we were kids, would destroy everything I'd built. He took the woman I loved, and our parents chose him over me. If you're watching this, let me know where you're from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how 4 years later they all came to regret it. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class home in Boston. My father, Frank, worked as a high school principal, and my mother, Diane, taught third grade. They were good people who provided a stable home, but from the moment my brother Aaron was born when I was 5, the dynamics shifted dramatically. Aaron became the center of their universe. While I had to work part-time jobs through high school to save for college, my parents paid for Aaron's education in full at an expensive private university. When I drove a 15-year-old Honda through college, they bought him a new Audi for his 18th birthday. The pattern continued into adulthood. I saved for years to make a down payment on my first condo, while they gifted Aaron with a substantial sum for his first home. Despite the obvious favoritism, I tried not to let it affect my relationship with my brother. I focused on building my own life and career in software development. That's where I met Jessica. We were assigned to the same project at Prism Tech Solutions, a cybersecurity startup where I worked as a senior developer and she was the UX designer. Jessica was brilliant, thoughtful, and had a laugh that could light up an entire room. We clicked instantly, spending long nights perfecting code and designing interfaces. What started as professional respect quickly blossomed into something more. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant down the street from our office. I remember how she talked passionately about her dreams of starting her own design agency someday. That night stretched into hours of conversation, and I knew I had found someone special. Over the next 3 years, we built a life together. We went camping in Vermont during fall to see the leaves change color. We spent our 2-year anniversary in a cabin in Maine, completely disconnected from technology for a full week. Jessica understood my family dynamics without me having to explain them. She listened when I needed to vent about yet another instance of my parents choosing Aaron over me, but she never encouraged resentment. Your parents' inability to love you the way you deserve isn't a reflection of your worth, she would say. It's a limitation in them. When I decided to propose, I spent months planning the perfect moment. I took her to the restaurant where we had our first date, but I had arranged with the owner to reserve the rooftop just for us. With the Boston skyline twinkling around us, I asked her to be my wife. I was on cloud 9 when we announced our engagement to my family. My parents offered congratulations that felt rehearsed and hollow. They asked about wedding dates and venues, but their enthusiasm seemed forced. Still, I was too happy to dwell on their reaction. What I couldn't ignore was Aaron's behavior at our family dinner celebrating the engagement. He kept staring at Jessica when he thought no one was looking. The way he found excuses to talk to her alone troubled me, but I pushed those thoughts aside. I trusted Jessica completely, and I couldn't imagine Aaron would cross that line. The first cracks in my perfect life appeared about 2 months after the proposal. Jessica began acting distant. She would cancel our dinner plans last minute, claiming to be tired from work. Her phone would buzz constantly, but she would quickly dismiss the notifications when I was around. I noticed she was spending a lot of time at my parents' house, supposedly helping my mother plan wedding details. This struck me as odd since my mother had shown so little interest in our engagement. When I questioned her about it, Jessica would become defensive. "I'm just trying to build a relationship with them," she would say. "They're going to be my family too." One night I woke up to find Jessica texting in the bathroom at 2 a.m. When I asked her about it the next morning, she claimed it was her sister having relationship problems. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had taken root. "Is everything okay between us?" I finally asked her directly. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Of course. I'm just stressed about the wedding and work. Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. 2 weeks later, Jessica told me she was pregnant. Under normal circumstances, this would have been cause for celebration even if it came before our wedding. But something about the way she said it felt wrong. There was no joy in her eyes, only what looked like guilt. "That's wonderful news," I said, pulling her into an embrace she didn't return. "We'll figure everything out." I can't wait to be a father. Jessica pulled away. We need to talk about this more. I think we should tell your parents together. I was confused by her insistence on involving my parents so quickly, but I agreed. We arranged to have dinner at their house that weekend. What I didn't know was that Aaron would be there too, waiting with my parents when we arrived. The moment we walked into my parents' dining room, and I saw Aaron sitting there with a somber expression, I felt a sickening premonition. My mother had set the table with her good china, the kind reserved for serious family discussions. "What's going on?" I asked, looking from my parents to Aaron to Jessica. Jessica couldn't meet my eyes. She sat down next to Aaron, not me. My father cleared his throat, but it was Aaron who spoke. "Ernesto, I don't know how to tell you this." He began, his voice steady, despite the bomb he was about to drop. "Jessica and we've been seeing each other. The baby is mine." The room seemed to spin around me. I looked at Jessica, silently begging her to deny it, to tell me this was some cruel joke. But she only stared at her hands folded in her lap. "How long?" I managed to ask. "6 months," Jessica whispered. 6 months. While I was planning our future, picking out engagement rings, she had been with my brother. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I expected my parents to be shocked, angry on my behalf. Instead, my mother reached across the table and took Jessica's hand. "These things happen," she said softly. "What matters now is what's best for the baby." My father nodded. "Son, we know this is difficult, but we need to handle this as a family. Aaron and Jessica have decided they want to be together." "They've decided," I echoed incredulously. "And what about what I want? What about the fact that my brother and my fiancée have been lying to me for months?" My mother's expression hardened slightly. "Ernesto, please try to understand. There's going to be a child involved. Your nephew or niece. You need to be mature about this." Mature? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Aaron sleeps with my fiancée, gets her pregnant, and I'm the one who needs to be mature." Aaron finally spoke up. "I'm sorry, Ernesto. We never meant to hurt you. It just happened." "Things like this don't just happen," I shouted. Standing up so quickly my chair toppled backward. "You made choices, both of you. Every time you lied to me, every time you went behind my back, those were choices." My father put his hand on my shoulder. "Son, please calm down. Getting angry won't solve anything. So what's your solution, Dad? What exactly are you proposing here?" My father exchanged glances with my mother before continuing. "We think it would be best if Jessica moved in with Aaron. They're going to need support with the baby coming, and we want to be there for them." The subtext was clear. They had chosen Aaron, as they always had. Not only were they not outraged on my behalf, they were actively planning how to support the people who had betrayed me. "And what about me?" I asked quietly. My mother gave me a patronizing smile. "You'll find someone else, dear. You're a catch, and you'll always be the baby's uncle." I looked around the table at these people who were supposed to love me. My brother, who had taken the one thing I cherished most. My fiancé, who had lied to my face for months. My parents, who once again showed me where their priorities lay. Without another word, I walked out. Jessica called my name as I left, but I didn't turn back. There was nothing left to say. The next day, I returned to our apartment to find Jessica packing her things. She tried to talk to me to explain, but her excuses rang hollow. "I never meant for this to happen," she said through tears. "I love you, but with Aaron it's different. I can't explain it." "Did you ever love me at all?" I asked. Jessica paused. "I thought I did. But what I feel for Aaron is stronger." Her words were like daggers. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, asking if Jessica needed help moving her things to Aaron's place. Even in this moment of my greatest pain, their concern was for her, not me. Word spread quickly at work. Jessica requested a transfer to another team, but the damage was done. Colleagues who had been friends now avoided eye contact in the hallways. Some suggested I should be the bigger person and accept what had happened. Others whispered, when they thought I couldn't hear, speculating about what I had done wrong, to push Jessica away. I fell into a depression. My work suffered, and I found myself on performance review. The thought of staying in Boston, of potentially running into Jessica and Aaron, of hearing updates about their life through mutual friends became unbearable. After 3 months of barely functioning, I made a decision. I resigned from my position, put my condo on the market, and cut all ties with my family. I needed a fresh start somewhere far away from the ruins of my old life. Seattle was as different from Boston as I could get without leaving the country. The constant rain matched my mood as I settled into a small apartment and started a new job at Horizon Security, a mid-sized cybersecurity firm. My boss, Paul Sullivan, seemed to sense I was running from something. He didn't pry, but he took me under his wing, inviting me to dinner with his family and assigning me to challenging projects that required my full attention. Work became my lifeline, the one place where the past couldn't touch me. Whatever you're carrying, it doesn't define you. Paul told me one night after we'd stayed late debugging a complex security protocol. But you can't outrun it forever. He was right, of course. Though I had physically left Boston behind emotionally, I was still trapped in that dining room reliving the moment my life fell apart. At Paul's suggestion, I reluctantly joined a support group for people dealing with betrayal trauma. Sitting in a circle with strangers listening to their stories of unfaithful spouses and disloyal friends, I finally found people who understood. They didn't offer platitudes or suggest I should forgive and move on. They acknowledged the depth of the wound and gave me space to heal at my own pace. Betrayal by those closest to us challenges our ability to trust not just others but ourselves, said Dr. Martins, who facilitated the group. You trusted your instincts about Jessica, and they were wrong. You trusted your brother and parents to have your back, and they didn't. Rebuilding that internal trust takes time. Slowly, I began to emerge from the fog of depression. I made friends in the group, and through a local hiking club I joined. I went on a few dates, though none progressed to anything serious. I wasn't ready, and I was honest about that. 2 years after leaving Boston, I received an email from Michael, one of the few former colleagues who had stayed in touch. Not sure if you want to know this, he wrote, but Jessica and Aaron got married last weekend. Your parents bought them a house in Brookline as a wedding gift. They have a little boy now, about 18 months old. The news hit me harder than I expected. I had imagined I was over the worst of it, but reading those words reopened the wound. I could picture it all too clearly. My parents doting on their grandson Aaron and Jessica, playing happy family in a house my parents had given them, a luxury I had never been offered. I spent that night alone in my apartment, allowing myself to feel the pain one last time. By morning, I had made a decision. If I truly wanted to move forward, I needed to build something of my own, something that couldn't be taken from me. Using the skills I'd honed at Horizon and the connections I'd made through Paul, I started developing a business plan for my own cybersecurity firm specializing in protecting small to medium businesses in underserved market. I called it Shield Core Systems. The next 2 years were a blur of long hours investor meetings and the 1,000 challenges of building a company from scratch. But the work energized me in a way nothing had since before the betrayal. ShieldCore grew from just me in my apartment to a team of 12 operating out of real offices in downtown Seattle. It was at a client meeting that I met Sophia Martinez, an architect whose firm had hired us to secure their network. Smart, direct, and with a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard, Sophia intrigued me immediately. When our meeting ran long, I suggested we continue the discussion over dinner. One dinner led to another, and before long we were seeing each other regularly. Unlike with Jessica, where I had fallen hard and fast, my feelings for Sophia developed gradually, built on a foundation of genuine friendship and mutual respect. She knew about my past. I had told her everything after a few months of dating, and she never made me feel broken because of it. Everyone has scars, she said. They're proof you survived something difficult. As ShieldCore continued to grow, we caught the attention of industry publications. When Northwest Tech Review named me Up-and-Coming Entrepreneur of the Year, it felt like validation of the path I had chosen. I had rebuilt my life from the ashes of betrayal, and it was better than I could have imagined. The final piece fell into place when an opportunity arose to expand ShieldCore to the East Coast. Despite my reservations about returning to Boston, I knew it made business sense. With Sophia's encouragement, I decided to face my past head-on and open our second office in the city I had once fled. You're not the same person who left, Sophia reminded me. You're going back on your terms as a success story. The day before I was scheduled to fly to Boston to scout office locations, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in 4 years. Ernesto, it's Mom. My first instinct was to hang up, but something in her tone stopped me. She sounded tired, defeated. How did you get this number? I asked. Paul from Horizon. I've been trying to find you for months. I made a mental note to talk to Paul about giving out my contact information even to family. What do you want, Mom? She hesitated. I know you have every reason to hang up, but please hear me out. Things have changed here. Aaron made some bad investments. He lost everything, including the money your father and I put up as collateral for his business loan. We're about to lose the house. I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see what this has to do with me. There's more, she continued, her voice cracking. Jessica left him. 6 months ago. She's with some investment banker now. Aaron's a mess. He's drinking too much. Can't hold down a job. And your father had a minor heart attack from the stress. The news should have brought me satisfaction. Wasn't this exactly what I had fantasized about in my darkest moments after the betrayal? Everyone who had hurt me was suffering the consequences of their actions. But the reality left a bitter taste. Again, I'm sorry to hear that I said more gently this time. But it's been 4 years, Mom. You can't expect me to come running back to fix Aaron's mistakes. I don't, she said quietly. I thought you should know. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. We were wrong, Ernesto. So wrong in how we treated you. Not just with Jessica and Aaron, but always. It was the apology I had waited a lifetime to hear. But now that it had come, I didn't know what to do with it. I need to think about this, I told her. I'll be in Boston next week for business. Maybe we can talk then. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time. When Sophia came home, I told her everything. What are you thinking? She asked after I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to tell them they made their bed and now they can lie in it. But another part wants to help because they're still your family, she finished for me. Does that make me weak? Sophia shook her head. It makes you compassionate. But compassion doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your boundaries or your self-respect. Her words stayed with me as I flew to Boston the following week. The city looked the same, but I viewed it through different eyes now. I was no longer the betrayed brother, the discarded son. I was Ernesto Reyes, CEO of Shield Core Systems, a man who had rebuilt his life on his own terms. I met with realtors, toured potential office spaces, and finally, on my last day in town, drove to my parents' house in the suburbs. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling in places, the garden overgrown. My mother answered the door, gray, now dominating her once dark hair. She hugged me tightly, and after a moment's hesitation, I hugged her back. My father sat in his recliner in the living room, thinner and more fragile than the commanding presence I remembered. He struggled to his feet when he saw me, emotion clear on his face. Son was all he managed before embracing me. We talked for hours, really talked, for perhaps the first time in our relationship. They told me how Aaron's business had failed spectacularly after he ignored advice from his investors and made a series of increasingly risky moves. How he had convinced them to use their house and retirement accounts as collateral. How Jessica had grown increasingly distant as their financial situation deteriorated, finally leaving when the money ran out completely. Where is Aaron now? I asked. He's renting a room from a friend, my father said. He has partial custody of Jake, his son. Jessica lets him have him on weekends. I nodded, trying to process this information. I had a nephew. I had never met a child who had been conceived in betrayal but was innocent of his parents' sins. And what do you want from me? I asked directly. My parents exchanged glances. Nothing, my mother said finally. We just wanted to see you to apologize. We don't expect you to solve our problems. I didn't make any promises that day, but after returning to Seattle and discussing it with Sophia, I made a decision. Through Shield Core, I purchased my parents' house, allowing them to stay there while paying a nominal rent that would go into an escrow account for Jake's future education. It was a business investment, I told myself, but also a way to help without enabling further irresponsibility. The hardest part was meeting with Aaron. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. He looked terrible with dark circles under his eyes and clothes that hung loosely on his frame. I don't even know what to say. He began staring into his coffee. Sorry seems inadequate. It is, I agreed. But I didn't come here for apologies. I came to establish boundaries. I explained my arrangement with our parents and made it clear that my help came with conditions. I'm not here to bail you out. If you want to rebuild your life, you'll need to do the work yourself. Aaron nodded. I understand. I've been in therapy trying to figure out why I do the things I do. Why I always wanted what you had, even when I had so much already. His self-awareness surprised me. That's a start. After careful consideration, I offered Aaron a position at Shield Corps' new Boston office. Not in development or management, but in security operations, checking physical security protocols and managing the front desk. It was an entry-level position, one where he would have to prove himself without any special treatment. Why would you do this for me? Aaron asked, genuine confusion in his eyes. I'm not doing it for you, I told him honestly. I'm doing it for myself. To prove that I'm not defined by what happened, that I can move forward without being controlled by anger or resentment. 6 months later, I returned to Boston for the official opening of Shield Corps' East Coast headquarters. Sophia came with me wearing the engagement ring I had given her during a weekend trip to Mount Rainier, where we had first connected over a shared love of hiking. We held a small engagement party while in town. My parents attended, visibly uncomfortable at first, but gradually relaxing as they got to know Sophia and saw how happy she made me. Aaron came too, bringing Jake, now a curious 4-year-old with his mother's eyes. Watching my father interact with my mother, I could see they had changed. The experience had humbled them, made them recognize the damage their favoritism had caused. During a quiet moment alone, my father addressed it directly. I failed you as a father, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I always thought I was treating you both the same, just responding to your different needs. Aaron seemed to need more support, more guidance, while you were so independent, so capable. I told myself you were fine on your own. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. His words healed something in me I hadn't realized was still broken. I didn't respond right away, just nodded and squeezed his shoulder. Later that night, lying in our hotel room, Sophia asked if I regretted coming back to Boston facing my past. No, I said after a moment of reflection. I needed to do this, not for them, but for me, to show myself that I'm stronger than what happened to me. Sophia propped herself up on one elbow, looking at me with a seriousness that matched the moment. What you did for your family, even after everything, shows incredible strength of character. I shook my head. It wasn't entirely selfless. There's freedom in letting go of anger, in choosing compassion over revenge. I did it as much for my peace as for their welfare. As Sophia and I planned our wedding and our future together, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal that had once defined me was now just a chapter in my story, not its conclusion. I had built a successful company, found true love, and even begun the process of healing family wounds I had once thought irreparable. Aaron was slowly proving himself at work, his natural charm and people skills making him effective at his job. He had maintained his sobriety and was developing a genuine relationship with his son. My parents had adjusted to their new financial reality with more grace than I had expected, finding joy in simpler pleasures and rebuilding their relationship with me one conversation at a time. As for Jessica, I heard she was already separated from the investment banker. Her actions had set off a chain of events that had caused pain for everyone involved, including herself. I felt no satisfaction in her unhappiness, just a quiet acknowledgement that actions have consequences we cannot always foresee. Sophia and I bought a house with a view of Puget Sound large enough for the family we hoped to build together. We set aside a room for Jake to stay in. When he visited, a tangible symbol of my commitment to being present in my nephew's life, despite the complicated circumstances of his birth. The lessons I learned through this ordeal were hard-won but valuable. I learned the importance of self-worth that doesn't depend on others' validation. I discovered the incredible resilience of the human spirit and its capacity to rebuild after devastation. Most importantly, I learned that while we cannot control how others treat us, we always have power over how we respond. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience and redemption. Remember to share this with someone who might need to hear that after every betrayal, there's a chance to build something even better than what was lost. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to write new chapters in your own.